2023, and January 16th, 2024 meetings can signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 2, discussion and possible action on a conditional use at 2812 North 6th Street to allow a mobile service support structure in an institutional zoning district. This is for Vertical Bridge. We talked about this last week, but or last month?
Yeah, I think Andy can.
Andy will give us a brief spiel and any updates.
Really no updates, no changes, other than the fact that the second part of that report was completed. There's no substantial evidence provided at the public hearing from the last meeting, and it meets our standards for a conditional use. Staff recommends the approval of the conditional use permit.
All right. Thank you. All right. We have a motion by Commissioner, oh my goodness, all the Bs. We have Borneman and then Brueggemann is the second. So any discussion? Alrighty, all of those in favor of approving the conditional use at 2812 North 6th Street to allow a mobile service support structure in an institutional zoning district can signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? All right, that passes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. All right, we're going to move to item 7 next. It is discussion and possible action on a final plat for Vistas at Greenwood Hills First Edition and associated easement document. Want to take that, Brad?
Yes, thank you. So yes, this is the final plat. We had seen the preliminary plat before it went through council and this commission previously. I guess as staff, we're still working on some of the details, but we're confident, and this is, all of City Hall, engineering, parks, DPW, et cetera. We're uploading our comments on this, and it's, at this stage, we're comfortable with the land division, which is what we're weighing in on here. The final plats will work out the developer agreement. It's still in progress, but that's close to being finalized. But in terms of the final plat, we recommend approval.
Okay. Any questions or a potential motion from this body? Motion. I have a motion by Brueggemann and a second by Borneman. Any discussion? Alrighty. All of those in favor of approving the final plat for Vistas at Greenwood Hills, First Edition, and associated easement document can signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Okay, thank you. Next up is item number 9, discussion and possible action on preliminary plat for Green Tea Meadows. Would you like to take that one?
That one too. So this is for a new potential subdivision east of 72nd Avenue. There's 2 roughly 40-acre parcels that a developer is looking at putting single-family homes in, and the plat is in the packets. We've had some back and forth on it, and again, this is a preliminary plat. We're still, again, gathering comments from all of staff, and so far it's minor. We generally approve of the preliminary plat as it's being shown.
All right. Is there any discussion from this body or maybe a motion? Okay, I'm going to go with a motion by Alder Herbst and a second by Mr. Brueggemann. Is there any discussion? Okay, all of those in favor of approving the preliminary plat for Green Tea Meadows can signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, that passes. Thank you. All right, now we are going to bump back up to item number 3. And this is a public hearing. This is for 404 Franklin Street. This is discussion on amending the general development plan, the GDP for the YMCA, the landing to allow for off-site parking. And maybe we'll start with, before we open the public hearing, we'll have a quick brief by Brad and then the petitioner, and then we'll open it up for everyone to have their say. But I'll let you go first, Brad.
Thanks. I guess just some procedural stuff, some background information. The plan commissioners did receive a packet since the online packet was sent out. These letters just came in like today and yesterday. I counted, 19 letters with various opinions. They're roughly split down the middle, and that's in addition to the 2 letters that we received before we sent out the packet. Those are in the packet. Those were both opposed to the zoning, but the ones that we received in the last few days are, roughly split. My estimate was 10 that were for it and 8 that were against it. The caveat there is that some of the ones that were for were speaking, specifically about the landing itself. So tonight, we're not necessarily talking about the landing expansion. We're talking about 404 Franklin Street. It's a different parcel, different zoning. It's for off-site parking lot. So that's what the action that we're considering tonight. And I guess maybe after the public hearing, I could go through the staff report in more
Okay,
detail.
that sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
If the petitioners would like to come up and kind of give a little brief overview on the project, I know we have some stuff here that you've provided us, so you're welcome to do that before we open the public hearing as well.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Brian Bailey. I'm the president and CEO of the Woodson YMCA. Appreciate you listening to our request tonight. It's an important one, very important to a segment of the population that's our largest growing. It's also a vulnerable population. Though Brad had said this is about a parking lot, it's so much more than that. I do need to talk that this is a full project. It's not a separation of the two, no matter what that is. We're going to show you what the vision is here. And I need to just give you some background about the landing and the Y. Although the landing is a part of the Y, it's a segment. It's a senior activity center that came about to meet a community need. But I start with, the Y's been in the community for 133 years. Our role is to meet community needs, and we do that. We've done it, and it's changed over the years. I can tell you back in 2008, when the red brick building sat on the corner of 3rd and Grant, we did a lot different things than what we're doing today. And we've progressed, and we teach children to swim, and we do licensed childcare, and as the need goes, we adjust accordingly. That's what the YMCA does all over the country. We've been in this neighborhood. We've been on that block for 116 years, so we've been serving downtown, and now we're serving very intentionally a population that's grown and has some vulnerability to it. So that's why we're here tonight, because we can take this fantastic special product that we have and take it to another level. We have people from all over the country who are going, what's going on in Wausau, Wisconsin with this thing called the Landing? It's a pretty special place as we talk about drawing people downtown for economic development, to have a great place to come and spend time, quality of life. So, as you know, back in 2018, we developed a plan in downtown Wausau to enhance the Woodson YMCA. It was a $25 million privately funded project. We touched just about every part of the Y except our water. Hard to change that we were landlocked there. We got very creative in the process. We changed the format of downtown. We're going to talk about parking. We're going to talk about the west side too. We acquired some lands, a lot of blighted property, and brought that into this project. We also worked with the Aspires Clinic to bring them on campus, bring a great tax base into play here, and how can we feed off of each other, which we are continuing to do now. So before we open the Landing, which is designed for seniors, senior activity center, it's 55 plus, but I'm going to tell you the majority of the people in the Landing are 65 to 95. A wide range of abilities and mobilities from that standpoint. It's more than physical activity. It's social connectivity. It helps prevent social isolationism. It brings people together to connect. It's an important piece in the senior aging population. And before we opened the Landing in 2019, which was in October, we had about 1,600 members that were over the age of 55. By December of 2021, we had over 3,500 members. We more than doubled that. Remember that we were closed for over a year for the pandemic in that time. It tells you the popularity of the product that was being put in place here. We closed the Y was closed for 3 months. The Landing was closed for a year and 3 months out of a necessity of safety. When we opened it back up, it just continued to take off. At that time, the 404 property was for sale. It had been for sale for a year. It's right in our backyard, directly across the street from the Landing, right off of 4th Street. Our board saw this massive growth and said, we need to start planning to get ahead of this and what our future is. So we started to go, we need a specific strategic plan for the Landing. At that time, we said we should purchase 404 because there's going to be some type of product that can enhance the landing on there. So we did that in December of 2021. So we've actually owned that property for a little over 2 years on it. In the spring of 2022, we started the strategic planning process. We did 3 things. We surveyed all of our members who were a part of the landing. We held focus groups, and we had the 404 Franklin property analyzed by architects and designs on how we could repurpose that to make that enhance the landing. So what we found is this. When we, through our surveys and focus groups, came back 3 major things. We love the landing. We love everything about the product, the connectivity, the education components you put in place for it. It gives us some great meaning. That was the good. The bad was we hate the parking. There's not enough, and it's hard to get in the building. The second negative was we love to learn, and when we're learning in our education rooms, it's too noisy because there's too many people socializing and having fun outside the walls. Good problems, but problems. We took that information. We heard back from the analysis from our architect, said it's an awkward building. It has some aesthetic views to it, but it's awkward because it's hard to get into. And once you're into it, it's got 1 main floor, and then you have 4 more steps to be able to get to a bathroom, what was a bedroom, or anything else. So the analysis came back. You can spend $1.5 million to get this up to par and how we can make it used, but you're only going to get 1,500 square feet of utilization. During that year that we took to do this analysis, we grew even more on that. I'm going to tell you today, we have over 5,700 members who are over the age of 55. 250% increase from when we started on there. There's some magic in this product, and we need to come up with a plan. So we took the next year of designing something that we thought was a real fix here. And that's what we want to describe to you here. Our plan here is to create a separate entrance for the landing right off of 4th Street. We'd like to use our 404 property that we've purchased 2 years ago and create dedicated specific parking to our senior population. It's a vulnerable population. We also operate the First Presbyterian Church. There's about 50 parks on that property. The church uses it on weekends. We use it during the week, and we collaborate when they have food drives and things of that sort. There's also about 25 street parks in there. By putting the new parks, the old parks, and the new entrance, we bring over 100 parks that become user-friendly right into the landing on that. Just remember, I've heard this a lot. People come to the Y to exercise. The landing's not all about just exercise. All of us are on our own journey of physical health. There's a lot of 55-year-olds and 95-year-olds who are in different spectrum of mobility on that. Not everyone's handicapped, but it's hard to get in the building. I hear a lot about go west, go west. That's a 2-block walk to get into the landing for many people on there. So this is the other thing I'll say about parking when it comes with the landing and general Y users. You're usually going to get people coming and going who are coming to the Y on a general visit, 45 minutes to an hour. So traffic's going to come and go. We have great parking. It fills up. I'll guarantee you that. Go by any morning on that. Go by any evening. The west lot fills. The lot right next to our building, which we dedicate to our 65-plus population, is filled all day long from morning through afternoon on that because our visits to the landing are 2 to 4 hours because they're coming to spend time to sometimes exercise. Maybe it's play bridge. They might have lunch. They're going to have coffee. They're going to learn in one of our education classes. Might be playing pool. There's so many different combinations. It's a place where people can spend time, quality of life. So that's an important thing that we have to remember on here. The new entrance then will allow us to, we'll have our own desk, front desk, with sight lines out to the parking field, which is an important piece here on that. In our last project, we spent about $400,000 developing, some people would call it a roof, some would call it a floor, for future growth. It was very obviously pretty quickly that our growth is our senior population at that point. So we developed a plan on how can we build up. This plan has a new elevator, a brand new 3rd floor, which brings us 3 new program spaces, a dining area, commercial kitchen, outdoor patio space for sitting, physical activities from bocce ball, cornhole. It's a magic place. We'd like to be able to show you that, what it looks like. I think Brad's got the link to pull it up right now.
You want the video or the images.
You can start with the image and then we'll go right into the video. It'll give people to show what the entrance would look like and what it comes down Franklin Street. So that's where you'd see Franklin Street. That would be the new parking lot to the right. To the left would be the First Presbyterian lot that we operate. Both of them within a few hundred feet of being able to come right into the new landing doors. So if you go to the next slide, it shows you a different view of it. One more slide. This would be from the entrance what it would look like coming in to it. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see from the different angle looking out to the parking field from that. So this location would only be designated for landing 55-plus members. You won't see a 25-year-old coming to play basketball at the Y coming through this entrance. It's a dedicated parking lot for a vulnerable population, only for them. Now, if you'd like to click it, you'll see what the whole vision would come together. The project in whole would add 12,000 additional square feet to the landing, more than doubling its size. Everything that you're looking to the right is already pre-existing. This new wing is what you came into. A lot of natural lighting that we focused on. Views of Yawkey Park. We take you a little bit on the second floor. This is one of our hindrances. Our administrative area, it was built right into because we've grown so much, we now have 4 professionals. We have new offices on the second floor that you can look right down to the landing. We're going to take you up the stairwell. We'll also have an elevator that'll go directly up. And it's going to take you to a brand new 3rd floor level that did not exist. This would be one of our programs. It's a flexible room that could be used for sitting, reading, clubs. It could be program space. We kept it away from the general inner area so we don't have the noise issue when we try to program. Strategically set out to the views of Yawkey Park and also as much natural lighting as possible. This would be the large congregation area where you bring people together for our meals, dining. You can do many things in this area. It connects to our commercial kitchen, which was not built that way. Now we can do so much with food services for our seniors. If you ever come to Landing on a Wednesday, it's packed. We love our food on it. But that's the dining area. Behind that, looks like a bar, is behind house would be the commercial kitchen. I'm going to briefly take you outside. You're going to see that we added some additional outdoor space, seating areas, taking advantage of the outdoors, seeing Yawkey Park, views of the west, as well as an activity area that can be used here either for sitting or physical activities, bocce ball, cornhole, things of that sort on it. And it'll take you all the way down to the other side of it. Then you'll see 2 additional meeting rooms on the north side. Gives us the ability to make one huge room and serve 75-plus people in a program, or 2 separate ones with different combinations from there. And the bonus is it connects us back to the 3rd floor where our beautiful walking track comes in, so you could be involved with walking around the track and then come into landing to enjoy a program, something of that sort. So it ties our whole building together right there. Wonderful design that will not only take the pressure off the swelling of our population right now, but when you look at the demographics of our community, the next 10 to 15 years, the population will continue to grow on it. So it allows us to grow into this space too. It helps our long-range project. So that's our project it's not a parking lot and a design, it's all in one, because it does not make sense to do this without us fixing our parking situation, our dedicated parking situation for a vulnerable population. I also want to remind you, when we did our last project, we worked with the city on what parking should look like on there. If you were to look off of 3rd Street on our parking field, we committed to quality, aesthetically pleasing parking with rocks and berms and shrubbery and flowers and trees, and that, I call it a park in a park. That's what we wanted, that's what we put in place. That's what this parking will be also on there. It won't be asphalt, it'll be concrete, it'll match the decor with our neighbors, it'll be aesthetically pleasing from that standpoint. We commit to that, we care about our neighbors. I'll let you know, I met with the Historical Society, I met with the executive director and the chair, we had a good discussion about this. They understand, they're in support, that they are not opposed to this. They had a question about fencing and what that would look like, and it actually would help them because they've had some vandalism issues. The other thing is they asked, could we use the parking lot when we have programs? And the answer was absolutely yes, but make sure it's on a weekend. I let them use our parking this weekend when they had a program from that standpoint. We want to be good neighbors from that standpoint. I care about our neighbors to the east also. They're great people. We had good talks. Originally, they were supportive of this from that. They know what the landing does for our community. I want them to know that we said we would do everything in our power to make them comfortable what the aesthetics look like, from landscaping to fencing, from that standpoint on it. They were in support just recently. They've let me know that they're put between a rock and a hard spot from their neighbors and from what's right on there. I understand. I also let them know that this is an important thing for our community on there. There's always going to be something that's got to be weighed out right here on it, and that's what we're looking at from it. As far as the building itself, the 404 building, I just want to remind you, it sat for sale for a long time. In 2015, finally, the Thompsons bought it and converted. I'm going to call it a unique building on it. Is there usableness to it? Sure, it is, but it sat there. And then when he tried selling it, it sat on the market for another year before we bought it on there. There's not a lot of people beating on the door to say, hey, I want to be in this brick building that used to be a church many years ago on it. It's not a historical landmark. I would say that with it not being there and meeting this need, it actually opens up the views to our beautiful 2 properties on that land on it. The last thing I will say before I finish here is when we did our Westfield parking, off of 3rd Street, any property that came down, we worked with Habitat for Humanity very closely. Every property was reutilized to put back to things in this community. We would do the exact same thing with this building on it. We don't take raising a building lightly, but we also have to look at the need here and what it's doing for. We hope that this commission and the council sees what the YMCA and the landing does for our community and the people it draws into on a daily basis. We have 2,000 people coming in those doors on a daily basis type of thing, and some of them have different needs, and that's what this project is about. I thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. We may have, I'm just gonna request that we refrain from clapping and things just to maintain decorum for everyone. Thank you.
I'd like to add to Brian's, Tom Renz with REI, just briefly. This will be like reading tax code after following a cool video, but it's very important information. So what we did is we take a look at the parking in the area, kind of the need of why we're here and why we're asking for a parking lot. So right now the YMCA currently owns 217 parking stalls that are on property, whether there's 54 on the building property and there's a couple hundred across the street and then north a block. We looked at an 18-block area that's surrounded by the railroad tracks to the north, 1st Avenue to the west, 6th Avenue to the east, and McClellan to the south. And when you look at on-street parking in there, it looks like it's 18 blocks. But for example, you got to pull 6th, 5th, and 1st out because there's no parking on those streets. And there's a number of no parking areas within the 18-block area. We also determined that just because we're the Y, we don't get to use all the parking that's in there. There's other residences, businesses, the government, City Hall, other churches that also get to use those parking stalls. So big picture, to run some numbers by you. Again, the Y owns 217 parks that are on property. They lease 45 parking stalls from the First Presbyterian Church. which is in a great location for the new landing entrance. We've counted about 347 parking stalls that are either on street or within city parking lots within that 18-block area. Again, and as a number, we said about 25% we would dedicate from those 347 parks for the YMCA staff or YMCA use. So if you take a radius of 200 feet from the new landings entrance, we come up with about 52 parking stalls. And again, we're talking about working with the elderly community. And that 52 stalls includes the 29 that we're proposing on the 404 block. And so if you pull that out, that really diminishes within a 200-foot block, or excuse me, 200-foot area, the number of stalls that are very accessible for an elderly population. Then you go 400 feet out, we've got about 193 parks. Again, that includes the 29 parks that we're asking for. You go 600 feet out, you got about 300 parks, again, including the 29 that we're asking for. Something to keep in mind that you got 75 staff that work within the Y on a daily basis at any given time. And you get staff change, so there can be more than 75 using parking stalls. So when you start to drop that number down, you get in the 200s that are really kind of dedicated for the YMCA in the landings. And so when we look at the growth that they're experiencing and the available parking in the neighborhood, we really see a demand for these additional parks. And more importantly, the location of these parks to the front door of the landings. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to open up the public hearing. The way this works is if you want to say something about this project, you approach the podium, you give your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes. I can count you down if you get too close. So you're welcome to, it's just first come, first serve. So welcome and thank you.
I'm Jeff Stubbe. I'm the executive director of the Dwight and Linda Davis Foundation. And one of the things that we don't spend a lot of time talking about was the fact that we funded the original landing construction. And our plan here is to fund this particular project. So there's no public money in this. It's all private money. However, one of the conditions that we're putting this project in is it doesn't make sense to put an expansion in that you can't provide the parking. And so that was one of the things I asked for. And I didn't ask for that particular parking, but there isn't really, as you just heard Tom Redens describing, there really isn't an abundance of other spots to choose from. This is really the best alternative to add in with the other things that they have. So we see this as very important, and I view in order to approve that funding I'll kind of reiterate what Brian said is, and Brad, I don't view this as we're just looking at the parking, because if we don't get the parking, I don't think we're going to get the expansion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Lou Larson. I live at 904 South 21st Place, and I'm also the alderman for District 10. I just want to touch on 4 things. I just want to say this. Thank you for your presentation. It's just awesome what's going to be happening. I also want to bring up the reiterate that that this is not a historical property, as one person wrote to the Wausau Pilot Review that this property lost its historical value when the buildings were tore down in 1955. It's the YMCA's property. If there's a definite need for parking down there, if the building needs to be raised so the Y can better serve the community, I'm all for it. And my second point was also brought up is, as a city alderman who all that's on the council, I'm very TIF conscious, and there's no public TIF monies going into this at all. My third point of it is I'm also chair of the SISM committee, which is a capital improvement and street maintenance. I believe that by having this additional parking here, it would also make the neighborhood safer. That would be 29 less people that are parking on the street, and they'd also have a designated crossing area there for. And lastly, I just want to say that I hope that you approve this. I believe that this is good for the community. I think that, sometimes the government needs to get out of the way and let things happen, the good things happen in this community. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Martins. I live at 1228 Arthur Street in Wausau. I'm here to ask the Planning Commission to vote to deny the requested change of zoning at 404 Franklin Street. On behalf of the Friends of Wausau Historic Landmarks, I would like to again stress that this Georgian Revival, Colonial Revival building remains a fine example of these styles, with minimal exterior changes. Its historic nature and well-kept grounds blend in well with the other noted historical structures of the block. Although it is newer than surrounding buildings, having been built in 1955, it exceeds the 50-year requirement for becoming a locally landmarked building. This property is also noted within the Wisconsin Historical Society's database of historic buildings. In addition to the architectural value of this building, the rezoning and eventual raising of this building flies in the face of the vision laid out of our city and the comprehensive plan, as pointed out by the Wausau City's planner in his official report. The comprehensive plan mentions desired infill and pedestrian-friendly developments. A parking lot does not provide either of these. Increased parking capacity is better suited for the 3rd Street side of the building, where parking lots are already dominant in the landscape. Or even perhaps increased street parking is possible if discussed with the city engineer. The recommendations also included in the city planner's report are important to note. They point the YMCA to other possible solutions for their needs. Those recommendations include real opportunities for finding a long-term solution. The YMCA states that it is undergoing great growth, especially within the landing. And I agree, their programming provides important resources for our aging population, as well as all ages. And I'm part of that aging population. However, the plan to raise a structure that is still usable to provide 29 parking spaces for a program that is growing by leaps and bounds is short-sighted and a very poor use of resources. And when looking at the plan design, it includes only 2 designated spaces for the disabled. Not to mention the actual net gain is 19, whereas the property currently has 10 spaces available. I ask that the Planning Commission please follow the advice of the city planner's report and deny this request for a change of zoning. I ask that the Planning Commission again impress upon the YMCA the need to plan for continued growth and its future parking needs, not just providing a Band-Aid for its immediate needs. The YMCA and the landing are an important part of our community, but so is preserving our architectural heritage and history. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, each of you, for your dedication and service as citizens to the community.
Thank you. Would you mind giving your name and address for the record?
Certainly.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Ewells, and I live in Mosinee, Wisconsin. Again, thank you for your service. Disney brands itself as the happiest place in the world. I make no bones in asserting that the happiest place in Wausau, Wisconsin is that building behind me. But it's not the building, it's the people inside the building who make it what it is. I'm a 73-year-old, and I discovered the landing about a year ago. I would choose to drive from Mosinee to this particular venue as opposed to going to the Western Y. When you go there, you see and hear the vibrancy of this population. It is a wonderful facility with wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone is welcome to. Hi there.
Good evening, Tom Killian, 133 East Thomas Street and the older person for the district in which this property resides. And I'd like to start out by thanking the Y for everything it's done in the past and continues to do for our community. I appreciate that, and I know a lot of other citizens do as well. And we've heard about input and goals, aspirations inside the building. We just heard, but let's talk about outside the building. I had the opportunity to just hear my colleague, and it's always nice to hear a colleague in a neighboring district give an opinion, but in this case, I typically receive the bulk of input in District 3 since I represent it, and I have received considerable concern from surrounding residents of this property. I've received concern from even nearby workers at other companies. I received quite a long email yesterday with detailed concerns. And sometimes citizen input alone is not enough, even if it is those immediately impacted. And those are the concerns that I have really fielded, those nearby and most impacted. But the staff report as well lays out an analysis and a conclusion. And I'll just read the first sentence of that conclusion and recommendation. Staff does not recommend in favor of the proposed parking lot at 404 Franklin Street. And then it lays out possible alternatives and options. Hopefully one of those could be less controversial and could work out for everybody involved. And I think that's the goal. But as things stand, I think it would be very rare indeed to have the amount of concern from the impacted residents around this property combined with the staff report that recommends against this proposal. So given those two things, I think there's only one reasonable conclusion, and that would be to deny this, and I hope that you do, because I concur with the staff's conclusion in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Dennis O'Fling, and my wife, Mary, and I own the Hurley House, the Queen Anne's home there, just down the block. It's the one we're talking about that borders the proposed Y parking lot issue. We've lived there for 45 years. We love the home. We love the downtown and access to, and we also belong to the landing. Congratulate both Julie and Brian for the great work they've done. We're all in support of everything in terms of the expansion of the building and all. Where we, of course, disagree is the parking lot that will only provide 29 spaces. Brian makes a great case here for the doubling of the landing population. It's doubled once, doubled twice, will double a third time, and so on. 29 parking places will certainly not solve that problem. I know Brian mentioned he doesn't like going west, but west is the solution. There's a wonderful letter in the pilot today that outlines the problems and gives that same conclusion. If you look, for example, at the tower report that the city commissioned in 2019, it also mentions the importance of structured parking. If you take the Y's parking lot A there that has over 100 spaces, if you go down one level, if you stay at the street level and then go up one level and build a skywalk across, you've tripled the parking. Now, granted, that's a long-range project, but it's also, we're looking for a long-range solution here. The other thing that my wife and I have come up with that we think is a good solution for the building, for the church, that Mark and Sue Thompson so beautifully remodeled, is since Brian says that it really doesn't fit their needs and that it's not user-friendly, the city should buy the church, and they should make it into a visitor center. What a perfect location. It's got 10 parking places already. It borders the historical museums. The historical museum could help out. You've got beautiful space inside. You've got bathroom facilities. You've got kitchen facilities. It could become a place where visitors arrive. They have access to the 2 historical districts that begin there. And so that would be our solution. We have also personal problems with it that affect our own home. For one, and I know I'm running out of time here, but for one
Got
thing,
about
when you
10
look at
seconds.
the map has a lot of incorrections in it. For one thing, the red line goes through our house. That's a little bit of a problem. And another is that the fence, 6-foot fence that's being suggested, comes within a foot of our dining room window, and it crashes into our garage. Our 2 trees that are very mature that we both planted, they would be cut in half. And I know Brian has said very nicely that they would certainly solve that border problem. So our suggestion would be that the Y should go ahead with their plans as far as the building, but that it should take a step back, a deep breath, and work with the city, work with the Historical Museum, work with the city planner, and so on, and come up with a viable, long-term solution, not this rather short postage stamp approach.
Thank
Plus,
you.
we also believe in preserving the historic district, the Warren district. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's David LeMay. I live at 1401 Harlan Avenue in Rothschild, which is about a mile and a half from the other YMCA, and I've only been there twice. This YMCA has so much to offer our community. When I first started coming here 20 years ago, to see it come to where it is today is unreal. We have our pool room and ping pong, and we got sports. At the beginning, it was 3 to 5 people playing. We're up to 20 pool players. The ping pong table only had 2 players. We've got 10 players. I mean, it's expanding that well. We've got women coming in to play pool now. We got women playing ping pong, and it's really an awesome camaraderie that we need in this facility. And I just got over spinal cord surgery, and it was really hard for me to walk from a parking spot with a walker all the way across the streets to get to the YMCA. This would be so convenient for the elderly people that are on walkers every day. Walkers, wheelchairs, canes. This is to make it more efficient for those people. And this parking lot is definitely needed. I mean, you're running around sometimes 2 or 3 minutes just trying to find a parking spot. So yeah, I would be very, very sad if this parking lot does not go through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon or evening. Carol Lukens, 725 Ethel Street, Wausau, and I'm also Alder for District 1. Sort of mint in my mouth. So I appreciate all the YMCA does for our community. I very much appreciate the want to add more for our seniors, and I'm really happy to see the number of seniors, how that has been growing. The future, I've been researching this for a while actually, and actually the future of cities, according to different plans, different cities, is that increasing numbers of cities are actually getting rid of parking lots, not implementing more parking lots. And they take up living space, they create impervious surfaces, which isn't good for groundwater, adds to the heat effect. And again, I appreciate that we're taking care of our seniors, but I work with youth, and I think we also need to listen to them who care deeply about the environment because it is their future. The environment is their future, and many of them that I talk with are often saying, like, why are adults doing this? Why? They feel as though, there's a lot we don't see, and they really care. So my question for this, it's about the parking lot, not about the other building, but is there a both and? Instead of just approving this to go ahead, I'm not in favor of the parking lot. I've been contacted by constituents who also aren't. And are there alternatives that could be considered? Some of the speakers have already mentioned some alternatives. Is there some way to work with transit to, I don't know, pick people up? Are there meeting places? I don't know. But, universities, so many places that are studying this are also saying that, like, installing parking lots, that's a very bad thing to do for climate resilience. I will also just second that the letter to the editor published today in the Wausau Pilot and Review by Jonathan Smith is excellent. He lists a lot of sources. He mentions the Towers area plan, and it's what planners are saying for the future. So I think we need to come up with some new ideas. I also have one of the constituents that contacted me could not appear here tonight. Can I read her points?
Sure, you are running out of time, so, but feel free to hit it.
Can I do it separately for her with her name, but I don't have her address, or should I just quick read these?
Just go.
Okay.
Let's finish
So
her
she
up.
mainly has 4 points. So she said that downtown Wausau does not need any additional parking spaces, especially in the particular area of 3rd Street, in her opinion. This is, by the way, Mary Kay Schneider. She lives on the southeast side. She said, I'm guessing that rezoning and demolishing of said property will remove this property from the tax rolls, and thus any taxes that may be paid into the city may be lost, and rezoning of said property will allow a parking lot to directly adjoin one of the most beautiful and historical properties in our city, the Yawkey House Museum, impinging on the overall historical atmosphere of the museum and its grounds, which will in turn also likely result in unnecessary costs and disruptions, including having to potentially erect a barrier between the proposed parking lot and the museum. And last but not least, the building at 404 Franklin has softened and enhanced the greater overall appearance of the area for nearly 70 years. It is a part of the history and character of the neighborhood, adds a welcome modicum of greenery to an area quickly becoming an ocean of asphalt, and is architecturally significant as an example of colonial revival / Georgian revival, according to the Wisconsin Historical Society. Thank you.
I will say this body did receive that letter as well. I made sure to share. So thank you,
Thank you.
very much.
Good evening. My name is Jim Force. I live at 515 Franklin, which is just up the street from the property in question. We've owned that home for over 50 years. I'll be brief and compliment everybody for speaking out on both sides of this issue. One question that hasn't been addressed tonight has to do with parking at the Y. I know that lots B and C, if you're familiar with the property, which are under the building and next to the building, are designated senior parking lots. I think it's 65 and over from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. I frequently see others park there, and I question whether there's any supervision of that senior provision. From where I sit and see, I don't believe there is. So I'm concerned that we put in a parking lot on the property at 404 Franklin for the landings, which is an admirable program. I have many friends who love the program. You've made a great presentation here today. But if those 29 spots aren't supervised, then I would assume others can park there and go to the Historical Society, which has limited parking, or it can go across the street to the Presbyterian Church, or it could even walk downtown or go to the Grand Theater on one of the nights when there's a performance. So without supervision, I don't think the argument holds that that's going to be parking for the landings exclusively. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
My name is William Bertram. I live at 2207 Mount View Boulevard on the southeast side. And I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I'm on the board of the Historical Society. And this is a win-win project for both the landing, the YMCA, and for the Historical Society, because we are landlocked. And when they approached us, our executive director and our board president wholeheartedly endorsed this project because it opens up safely parking adjacent to the Yaki House. And we think this is, you know, a real home run for the north side of Wausau. So I want to thank you and make sure you give us due consideration on this project. It's needed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Pat Peterson, I'm on 524 Franklin. I'm not going to address the parking lot itself. I am opposed to the changing it to a parking lot. I'm going to address the safety on Franklin Street between 4th and 5th. I drive through there to get home. I walk through there multiple times per day. It is a safety hazard, especially in a normal winter when we have snow, because people pull out from the curb and you have to take turns to get through there on the city street. If you add the turning, the egress of the people in and out of that parking lot, it's just going to make it a more difficult situation. So I think that it's already a problem getting through that block. So we're opposed to it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deanne Schubring, and I live at 516 Franklin Street. I am opposed to this parking lot issue. In the summer, there's a lot of historical walking tours, and when these people walk through the neighborhood, they're looking at pamphlets and they're looking at this historical structure and that structure, and so they come to the parking lot. And what do they see? They're going to see a church that is no longer there. Also, this parking lot is not going to be a long-term solution. They need to build a parking ramp, which was suggested when the building was added on 5 or 6 years ago or whenever it was. Also, I'm sorry, I'm shaking. Also, for the O'Flings, what kind of view is it for them? They've lived in this house how many years, and you're eating your dinner and you're looking at a fence. That is not right. That is absolutely not right. We have too many parking spots. It is not good for the environment at all. And I think we need a parking spot, a structure on the west side of 3rd Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Gisselman, 319 Park Avenue, Wausau. First of all, I'm here to support the staff with regard to their recommendations to deny the zoning. I think that the staff looked at this with regard to the nature of the neighborhood, and I'm afraid what this might do with regard to the neighborhood itself. I think the Plan Commission has to be careful with regard to intrusions into some of our neighborhoods in the city of Wausau. While this building is not on an historic list of, it is certainly a neighbor to the Andrew Warren Historic District, and itself, in itself, a part of the historic nature of the city of Wausau, specifically downtown. It is part of that cultural map that we see extending from Fulton Street all the way up to Forest Street. It is part of that. And I think that we have to, as the city of Wausau, as the Plan Commission, we have to be careful about intrusions into that mix, into that map of what Wausau is like, and what it should be, reflecting its culture, reflecting its history, reflecting all the parts of what that downtown what this downtown has meant to the history of the city of Wausau. Be specifically attent to the neighbors that spoke this evening so far. The O'Flings, I think that they're very close to the situation, and I think it was zoned the way it stands today, and I think that it was zoned specifically for that purpose, and I think that we have to be very careful about how we treat our historic neighborhoods, and specifically some of these parts of downtown. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? You are welcome to.
I'm just going to make one last plea. This is important. I appreciate historic buildings. I have nothing against them. We have living beings who are in need of these services and these properties. I want to be careful what this message says. Does the city support the growth of the downtown community? That's the message I thought I've been hearing, is growing downtown. But by not supporting our senior population and putting something in place here, I think sends the wrong message. I'll clarify something earlier. This property is not on the tax base as it stands right now. I don't know if that's a major factor or not, but it does not have property value on it right now. We're a nonprofit organization. Our goal is to serve our community. This does make that area safer. That's the other thing I hope that you realize. This parking lot makes it a much safer situation down there. So I truly hope that you consider all those facts when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to? Okay. We won't close the public hearing until you.
Thanks. Dave Burke, I live at 520 Franklin Street for the last 40 years. I can't think of a better neighbor than what the Y has been during the period of time that I've lived downtown. They've always taken care of their properties and been real proud of their existence and the example they're setting in the community. Got a little bit of a problem with where we're going with 5,600 people in 29 parking spaces. I mean, I can't think of better odds to join a lottery for. Good heavens. The other thing is really personal. I've been in the construction business all my life, primarily remodeling. Worked in a lot of old buildings, a lot of old homes in the downtown area. I've never had a remodel get raised. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight? All right, one last time. We are 404 Franklin Street, discussion on amending the general development plan for GDP for the YMCA. Anyone? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close it. Thank you to all 15 of you who gave public comment. I think that's important. I did note some of the questions that we were asked by the public, but right now we're moving on to item number 4, where it's our turn to talk. This is discussion and possible action on amending the general development plan, the GDP, for the YMCA, the landing, to allow for an off-site parking lot. Just maybe to let you know that it doesn't end here, the discussion doesn't. No matter what we decide, it will go to our city council on March 12th, so just so everybody is aware of that. So I did take note of some of the questions we were asked, and one of them I thought was kind of important, that our Alder Lukens had asked. Is there an opportunity for both and? I kind of like that idea because I can see that maybe there's an opportunity for the neighborhood. And maybe that's a question for the YMCA, but for now, I'm going to go ahead and open this up for us to discuss, or if there's a motion, but I'm willing to have a discussion first if that's what this body would like. Mr. Borneman.
It's my understanding that the motion that we make on this has to be in the affirmative?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So to get this on the floor, I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion to approve the GDP. We have a second. Okay, we are now discussing. Brad, did you have anything you wanted to add before we started to discuss?
I can, or if you want to jump into some of the questions, or...
Sure, I just wrote down the two questions.
Okay.
Is there both and then...
Okay. Well, I guess in regards to that both and question, I mean, that was the nature of the staff report, in the sense that we're not, as staff, we're looking at the zoning code, the comprehensive plan, the plans that we have on the books, and, just general urban planning principles that we live by, and, using those as a basis, surface parking lots are never the best alternative especially for downtown environments. There's always better alternatives. And it's really hard to recommend a new surface parking lot in a downtown environment. When you look at this map and, I'll divide it east and west of 3rd Streets. East of 3rd Street is sort of the grain that this district should have. It's smaller buildings, they cover the lots, or the buildings cover a lot of the lots. That's good for walkability. Downtowns need walkability to be successful. Contrast that with everything that's west of 3rd Street, and it's almost all surface parking lots. There's, devoid of any human activity, really. I understand parking is needed. It's sort of a necessary evil, but again, in downtowns, there's different ways to treat parking other than just spreading out and creating surface lots. I guess we're not trying to recommend a specific course of action because, on the agenda is whether to approve it or not, but, there are other options available. I understand we're not. The petitioners are tying together the parking lot with the Y and the landing. Again, they're two separate issues. The landing can expand. They may disagree with that, but from a zoning perspective, permitting perspective, they're on a separate zoning district. They're allowed to expand on that property. They need the special permission, which is why we're here tonight for that parking lot. So again, the issues are sort of being conflated. And we're here to talk about that particular parcel. And I guess it's difficult looking at, again, our plans and our zoning code, which wants to encourage a certain form of the downtown, which is buildings, activity, density. When, that is already evident there, we don't need to do anything to alter that. We should be, looking to repair what's been done on the other side of 3rd Street. And that's not in character necessarily with the downtown environment. We should be working to fill that in to make that more of a downtown environment, walkable and vibrant. So, I don't know. We kind of went off a little.
Yeah, no, I
topic,
think you've given us some good context, and maybe there's opportunity to continue talking through some of the criteria that we generally at Plan Commission are looking at when it comes to this. But I know that you have something maybe also to say, but before we get too into this discussion.
Yeah, just for the record, I'll be abstaining from this vote as I'm a member of the YMCA board.
Thank you. All right. Anyone on this body, what do you want to know more about? What do you want to discuss? What do you want to share? Are there questions to the petitioners you have? Do you want to talk through the criteria? Yeah, Mr. Borneman.
Okay, I'll go first. First off, I'm a member of the Y. I enjoy going there. I go there a lot. I understand its purpose. I understand what it's trying to do. I understand what it's doing for especially the landing, and it's become a de facto, senior center in the community. I understand it's busy. I understand that as well, and they want to expand it. But that issue, as Brad had said, is separate than the issue that's before us. And what is before us is just a land use issue for a specific parcel of property. And I'm hesitant to approve it simply because it doesn't, as staff has determined in reading and looking at the comp plan, it doesn't agree with the comp plan. And therefore, I don't think I can support it. We as a board, we have the 10 points of criteria that we're supposed to be looking at to address this. The other part of the landing, and that is not part of that criteria that we should be using to judge this this request. So, in going through it, and staff has recognized that there's a couple of conflicts with the comp plan. And I've been a strong proponent of comp plans and that we should stick with them. They came to be by a process of involvement by everybody, or all the stakeholders here, and I'm reluctant to pick and poke at them for specific projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What else? Other comments or questions from this body? Yeah, Alder Watson.
I guess maybe the petitioner, like reading the recommendations from Mr. Lenz, like had some of those recommendations been investigated that he sort of did in the staff report? Is that
Sure.
something I can-
Yeah, we can, yeah. If the petitioner wishes, you're welcome to answer questions from this body.
Sure. We did a lot of investigating on it years back when we, if you look at when we did the project for a little over 4 years ago, we increased the size of our parking spot quite a bit. It's very easy to talk about parking ramps. Are they realistic? I don't know. Who has $15 million to start that process? We've done our research. Seniors don't like using parking ramps. They're confusing. Proximity is the key to this. We put a world-class center on the east side because we have to be creative when we're downtown. We are landlocked on it, and we've looked at a lot of things. I will tell you this. I'll bring back history a few years. I came back here in 2012, and we did an expansion to try to modernize and make the Y more user-friendly because you look at the topography around, it's hard to get in buildings, including the 404 Franklin property. There's steps, there's things. The Y used to have a number of steps that came up in large slanted areas, and you've seen we tried to take as much of that out of there. But during that process, we worked with the city leadership at the time. We had the same property under control to buy on that. The plan was to actually shut 4th Street down. It was, the city was behind it. The property was going to be sold for a whole lot less than we paid for it recently on it. And it was right to the last minute, and there was a little pushback from the business community about potentially stopping people, traffic come through there. The compromise was the city offered us First Presbyterian church lot, which they were using as a municipal lot on there. So it gave us close to 50 spots. But there was a plan in place to actually shut the street down completely, and the building was going to go down with it at that time. So, times have obviously changed, but that was ready to go down 10 years ago from that standpoint. We did a lot of investigating. That was a long answer, I'm sorry. But the problem is west is much farther away for proximity for vulnerable population trying to get in an envelope of a building on there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What else? Are there any other? No more questions. All right, so do we feel like we're ready to vote then? All righty. So right now, this is, we're voting on amending the general development plan, the GDP, for the YMCA, the landing to allow for an off-site parking lot. Your recommendation or your non-recommendation will go to the council on March 12th. All those in favor of the amendment can signify by saying aye. All of those opposed can say no. All right, that fails. It will be going to the city council for their decision, their final decision on March 12th. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this. I'm just going to maybe give people a couple of minutes if you want to exit. We do have another public hearing. Sometimes it's hard to. If you want to chat out in the lobby, that would be the best place to chat.
There was no votes, right? Oh, yes. I didn't know if we had the rule. I didn't think so.
All right, once everyone leaves, we're going to open another public hearing up. So if you want to chat and regroup in the lobby, that would be preferable to doing that here and now. Thank you. Alrighty, we are going to go ahead and move on. We now have a public hearing that I'll open up shortly. I'll let our folks give a little spiel, but it's discussion on rezoning 1327, 1331, 1333, 1337, 1341, 1355, 1361, 1363, 1371 South Avenue, and 706 Fleet Street from a single-family residential zoning district to a two-flat residential and neighborhood mixed use to a PUD planned unit development and approve the general development plan to allow for a multifamily development. We have the petitioners here, and we also have a staff. Brad has his glasses on, so it looks like we're ready to rumble.
Can't see without them, so I can give a brief introduction if the petitioners would like to as well. Please feel free. Just basic stuff. Colby is looking at redeveloping property along 8th Avenue, essentially, across from their main plant, which they own all of the property currently under discussion. It's got a variety of zoning, variety of land uses. The idea is to basically consolidate that for a single development. It would be a multifamily development with multiple buildings. I guess, we received the PUD application and looked at some of the details in there. Again, this is a PUD. There would be a second step with more specific plans that would come back to Plan Commission. But this first step is for the general plan. When we looked at our criteria, with the information that we did have, we felt that the criteria are generally being met with this proposal, so we did recommend moving ahead with the rezoning to PUD for the multifamily development, again, knowing that some of the details are going to come back to us in the future. So that's kind of the overall.
Alrighty. Petitioners, would you like to give a spiel about this and tell us more?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Tomsick. I'm the Vice President of Finance and Fleet Operations for the petitioner, Colby and Colby Millwork. I think we all agree that there's certainly a shortage of housing in the Wausau area, especially for people who are making between $15 and $25 an hour. And obviously the city has realized that because part of your strategic plan says that you want to develop more housing options within the community. But we've seen Wausau construct a bunch of low-income housing, and we've also seen a lot of market rate housing been either proposed or developed. But there's not that much in between for what's we call cost-effective housing for people that make between $15 and $25 an hour. And this lack of housing in Wausau has impacted the ability of many employers, Colby included, to recruit and bring people into the area. Please realize that today, Colby draws people from a 40-mile radius that are willing to drive that far to work at our facility. But some people either can't drive that far or won't drive that far, and they won't join our staff because they can't afford the housing in Wausau. So obviously, that puts us in a little bit of a pickle. But instead of complaining about the situation, we'd like to offer a solution. Yeah, there's the drawing up there, and again, this is all very conceptual because we wanted to have approval before we were going to spend a lot of money on a development. But we do have a little bit of a rendering here as well. We've seen projects in other cities that meet the need for cost-effective housing, and we got a conceptual rendering here of what our proposed facility would look like. And as you can see, it's not an old-fashioned apartment building, all one, all one big continuous building. So it's got the style that we see in a lot of metro areas today, including here in Wausau. So the development, you can see, has a number of buildings with a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. We're also proposing a mix of garages, covered spaces, and open parking to provide options to the tenants. But we've also found that today's younger renters aren't like all of us here in this room. They want different things. They want more tech, maybe a space to work from home. And it seems like the younger people today want to live in a place that has a sense of community to fight off that loneliness that I think a lot of that happened during COVID. So there's also in there what we call a community building, which again, we don't have totally fleshed out, but we envision that as a space where there'd be a common area that we could put in either like laundry, common space, recreation, weight room, and perhaps a kitchen and dining area that could be reserved for the tenants. So we have surveyed our team members at Colby, and we found that there's a lot of interest if we could provide housing like this. And again, their number one concern was affordability, just like it is for a lot of people here in Wausau. And as we mentioned earlier, we think that's going to help us attract people to Wausau and especially to Colby and Colby. We also had a neighborhood meeting in mid-December, and we invited those residents that were in the immediate vicinity, and we were really grateful for their positive reception to our proposed plans. So naturally, we'd appreciate the approval of the zoning change and the general development plan here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up our public comment. So if you're here to make a public comment, feel free to approach the podium, introduce yourself, name, address for the record, and then you get 3 minutes, and we'd love to hear from you.
Good evening, and thank you once again for this opportunity to speak. My name is Lou Larson. I live at 904 South 21st Place, and I am the alderman for which this proposal for this area. I just want to second the fact I've met with these people. They've shown me the plans. I was at the neighborhood meeting, and strangely enough, the neighbors were all for this. And in a matter of fact, what wasn't said, many residents came up, I believe it was 2 or 3 of them, says, you want my property, you can buy my property too.
Wow.
This is exactly what the city needs, is workforce housing. And once again, being a city alderman, who my colleagues know, I'm very TIF conscious. There's no city monies involved. So I would hope that the planning committee moves forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak? All right, I'm seeing the only other person that I haven't heard from shake their head. But we're going to go ahead and ask one more time if there's anybody here that would like to discuss this planned unit development and general development plan. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It's now this body's time to talk. We're on to item 6, discussion and possible action for rezoning 1327, 1331, 1333, 1337, 1341, 1355, 1361, 1363, 1371 South 8th Avenue and 706 Fleet Street, from single-family residential and 2-flat residential to a neighborhood mixed-use planned unit development, and approve the general development plan to allow for multifamily development. I have a motion to approve by Brueggemann and a second by Bornemann. Any discussion here? Yes, Mr. Brueggemann.
I want to commend the petitioner for, this is the type of collaboration we love to see, or I love to see as a planning commission member, to hold your meetings with the neighborhood before you bring something in, to have a well thought out, meeting the needs of not only the workforce, but the neighborhood and the community. I just want to commend you. This is, you're creating parking, but you're also paving over parking with housing, so I love it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bolkin.
I want to reiterate that this is a great project. This is what we look forward to, and I wish you good luck on the whole thing.
Alder Watson.
I guess I'm going to be a broken record, but I think this is amazing, and I wish more businesses in the area would take your lead as a good example for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borneman, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, I just have a kind of a question on it. It's a term I've not heard before. We've talked about, low-income housing and everything, but workforce housing is new to me. And when I first saw it, I thought, are you building housing for your workers? But is that the case, or is it not? This isn't primarily for people who work for Colby & Colby, is it? It's open for anybody and everybody?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah. And to get the scale and be able to get the rents down to where you need to be, you gotta have some amount of scale.
Okay.
And, yeah, we can't fill this with our people on day one, that's for sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, Alder Herbst.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let Colby & Colby know that I totally support this, and I really wish that we would be able to do some more of that housing like this in the city of Wausau. Thank you.
Tell your friends. Are we ready to vote? Oh, yeah, one more note if you want to approach the mic so we can hear you.
I was going to say, if anybody wants to do it, we know we can get them windows.
And a pitch. Thank you. All right, so I guess all of those in favor of rezoning 1327 through 1371 South 8th and 706 Fleeth Street from single-family residential and two-flat residential to a neighborhood mixed-use to PUD, planned unit development, and approving the general development plan to allow for multifamily development, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? All right, this will go ahead and go to our city council for our March 12th meeting. Thank you very much. Next meeting date, I don't have it written down, but maybe you'd have it written down.
Third Tuesday of March.
The third Tuesday of March, we're going to continue with this cadence. Looks like everyone's smiling about that. Thank you. And last item is item number 10. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Watson and a second by Herbst. All in favor can signify by saying aye. Any opposition? All righty. Thank you. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.